Hey, welcome to another episode. I'm super excited that you've decided to join me here today. What are legitimate business expenses? How do we know if we're claiming everything we can, or if I'm not claiming what I'm entitled to? These are a couple of questions I've been asked, so let's grab that table with our favourite cup and hash this out together. Okay, well, let's go. Come on, it's coffee time. The biggest question on most business owners' minds is, what are legitimate business expenses? This is something you need to ask your accountant, but I hate fobbing people off, so we're definitely going to cover this one today. You see, I discovered I wasn't claiming anywhere near what could be when I started this business a decade ago. After my first year in business, I rocked up to my accountant's office and I was quickly advised that because I ran my business part-time from home, I was actually entitled to claim a percentage of my home expenses. This was items like electricity and gas and the water bill, and even some minor office expenses like coffee, milk and sugar. Now, bear in mind, this was in 2013. Here in Australia, and also the rule was used on a per square foot. This meant I needed to measure the entire house and then work out how much space my office used to compare to the entire house. This then gave me a percentage share of the home office area. Then we also had to factor in that at the time I was only working a few hours from home. In the evenings, I think it was 2 hours, and 2 days a week on the weekend. This gave us the time use percentage. The next task was to gather all the utility bills for the year and give us the annual figure that could be claimed as the percentage use for business purposes. And the same rules applied for the consumables like that coffee, milk and sugar. Their total was divided by the percentage used on the average week in running the business. As we all know by now, many of us work from home, maybe as much as full-time since the Great Freeze of 2020. So I can tell you, this has changed for me completely. We now hold a couple of office spaces within the home, and I also have a small team in the family working here part-time. So the home office expense claims have gone up significantly, but mainly due to the fact of me being 100% remote and working virtual for all of my clients. But it doesn't end there. You know I hold rooms on Clubhouse. If you didn't, well, there's something for you to go and check out when you get time. I want to share a clip from the room where we held recently about this very topic. Hang on a second, let me play that for you right now. But if you went out and met a client at a cafe and you had a meeting and you paid for the coffee and for the lunch for that meeting, that's claimable. And again, check with your accountant if it is in your region and all that kind of stuff. But here that is claimable, that I actually took a client out to lunch or even to dinner. The only regulation here in Australia with it is you can't include alcohol. So if you go out for dinner and you decide to have some wine with that dinner, the alcohol cannot be included as an expense. So that's another example of something that might be claimable. Again, I always have to say, check with your accountant, make sure that that is actually a law where you are, and also make sure that you can do it based on your industry, because certain countries have different laws relating to industries, not just their location, but industry-specific laws. And as I highlighted in the clip from the Clubhouse room, it is a regulation here in Australia that you can't include the alcohol. Certainly ask your accountant if that's the case for you in your area as well. There were other business expense claims that came up in the Clubhouse room that I want to share with you. I'm just going to play this really short clip and then we're going to get back into the episode. So just hang fire while I press play. claiming for your Zoom subscription, using Zoom as a prime example, because a lot of us have Zoom since the pandemic or another recording platform, then that becomes a business expense. If you're using that to connect with clients and have those meetings virtually, then that's an expense as well. So just while we're on the topic of subscriptions, speaking of Zoom, I wanted you guys to know that I actually have a free tool available. If you head over to my website at kerryzarb.com/subs, SUBS, you can grab the Simple Subscriptions tool. This little bugger is designed to help you find all the subscriptions in your business, all those nasty little ninjas that slip into your bank account while you're sleeping. You can identify them, you can list them, and then you can take actionable steps to cancel the ones that you're no longer using, because that's really important. When you're running a business, it's all well and good to look at the top line and think about the money coming in, but we've also got to look at the money going out the door. I'll say it again, kerryzarb.com/subs. Grab your free tool and utilize that in your business, because it is well worth it. I think at the moment we're up to a saving of about $12,000 per year in the community, so I want you to be part of that. So that's my gift to you. So another thing that you need to know is when I hang out on Clubhouse, I have a partner in change. Not a partner in crime, but a partner in change. The amazing Kim White joins me every single week for our Clubhouse room. It's held on Friday at 7 a.m. Central Time, and for anyone here in Australia, that's around about 10 p.m. at night on Friday. So it's a little bit late, but not too bad. And remember, guys, the replays are on. So if you hang out on Clubhouse, or if you're curious about Clubhouse, you can certainly check out the club, and it's under the same name as this podcast. Of course, why would it be anything else? So I'd love you to join us there, but certainly if you can't, I understand. And I will be bringing you regular clips into these conversations from the Clubhouse rooms, because we share a lot of similar value in both spaces. And the reason I mentioned my partner in change, Kim White, is because from time to time you might hear from her in this podcast. She might join me at my cafe table and certainly join the conversation with us. I wanted to introduce her to you. She is amazing, she is fantastic, and I am so honoured that she actually spends that time with me every single week. And here's a little clip from her right now. Let me play that for you.
And I do think that if you have an accountant who is worth their, the price of admission, as I call it, I think they make you more money than what you spend on them by telling you all those kind of things before the end of the year. Like, so that you can actually know what you should do, instead of it being, wait till the last minute and then try to scramble and figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's another good point, Kim, because often we could actually go through a full 12 months of being in business before we sit down with our accountant and have that conversation, and then they might bring to the table. So it's all part of that engaging with a new professional and finding out exactly how they're going to help us. So even if you're brand new in business, have that conversation with an accountant early and ask those questions. Ask them what you can claim so that you are keeping the right receipts, keeping track of the right expenses so that you know exactly where you sit, and and obviously, hopefully in that conversation as well, you're talking about your end tax position, because this is the big thing. It's great that we've got income coming in. We need those expenses to offset against our income to not pay as much tax. That's the end result. We've got income coming in, expenses going out. The more we claim on our expenses, staying within the legal limits, then that's less that's at the bottom to pay tax on. That's as simple as it needs to be. Okay, so I might have got a little bit carried away because I just found another clip on the end of what Kim shared that I couldn't help but bring to the conversation for you here right now, because it's so needed. We have to think about having that conversation with our accountant. Anyway, I'm not going to recap because you heard it all and it was definitely worth sharing. So there were quite a few different expenses that came to the conversation on Clubhouse. I've got a few more clips to play you and I'll just do quick little guided things in between. Then I really want to start wrapping up because I don't want to keep you too long. My plan was to keep these episodes short. Clearly I'm a talker. Clearly I can go on, but I don't want to do that to you every single week. So we'll try and wrap this up as soon as possible without missing out on some valuable information. And meanwhile, while I'm playing that clip, do you mind if I go and grab another cup of coffee? Is that okay? So I'll be right back. And then to speak to the car for a moment, this might be, I would imagine this would be very different everywhere. Here what happens is you have a logbook system where you actually keep a logbook of the vehicle and how many kilometres you're doing for, I think from memory we do it for about 12 weeks. And then we don't have to do it again. It's just one record unless your circumstances particularly change. Like say, for example, now with the pandemic, I'm not driving nowhere near as much as I was before. So if I do get back in the car, I would probably do a new logbook, but the car's not moving at the moment. So there's no expenses on it to actually claim. Like there's pretty much zero petrol and maintenance and all that kind of stuff. Again, it might be different everywhere. You guys might have very different, rules for the car expenses themselves. And then obviously you've got the personal use versus the business use. So and those calculations come out when we do our logbook, because if I was to drive to the shops to get groceries versus driving into the city to see a client, and they kind of work it out that way by how many kilometres you've done in a 12-week period, how much was for business, how much was for personal. So in closing for today's episode, the final thing that I want to let you know is don't forget to look outside the square. Ask your accountant, because if there's something or multiple tiny somethings that you can be claiming in your business, and it might be $10 a month, it could be $20 a month, but it can all add up to $100 a month. That's $1,200 a year that can be coming off your taxable income as an expense in your business. So ask your accountant, ask the questions, find out the answers that you need. One thing that was highlighted in the conversation on Clubhouse is things have changed. Business has changed. We've all changed as people and the way that we operate our business. There's so much more online activity now than what there was 2+ years ago. So make sure that you're well informed. Ask the questions. Don't be afraid to push and ask the questions that you need to know. Think outside the box. And if you think it's silly, ask anyway. Because if you don't ask, you don't know. And there could be things that you're not claiming in your business that you are entitled to. So that's pretty much today's episode. Thank you so much for hanging in there with me. It's been great hanging out with you once again, I gotta say. And just remember, every single week we're going to have these conversations. You're welcome at my table. Pull up a pew, bring your favourite cup, and we will sit down and talk all about the finances that don't need to be so heavy. So I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. And until next time, happy biz beans to you.